Hi YouTube, this is Red Fox. I just made a purchase at my friendly local game store, and this is what I got. This is a painting primer published by Games Workshop. It's titled How to Paint Citadel Miniatures. I usually don't enjoy Games Workshop's prices, but something happened is that the game store offered this book to me at a discount, and so I bought it partially for that reason. I also own a lot of Citadel paints, and most miniature painters that play war games do own a lot of Citadel paints because they're the most widely used brand. And this book describes something called the Citadel paint system, and it's just a series of painting techniques and methods that were created by the same people who created the Citadel paints. So this is how to use those paints by the people who designed them. So it's a great tutorial. I'll show it to you here. So here's the book. You'll notice that it's spiral bound, and it's got this, most of the pages are in landscape rather than portrait format, and I'll show you this thing you can do with it. It's designed to do this so you can sit it upright and have your hands free to paint and just read from it while you use both hands to paint. So most of this book is pictures, high quality pictures with captions describing how the paint was applied. Like you can see this on the bottom here, you can fold and unfold that to make it stand upright. So that's an interesting feature of the book. The other thing I wanted to show you is this DVD. It just seats in here on this plastic nub, and you can store it there. It comes on and off easily. The DVD covers all of the main points in the book, so you can get video demonstrations of everything described in the book. Well, almost everything. There's like 6 armies that aren't on the DVD that are in the book, but all of the most important things are on the DVD. So here's kind of a warning or a disclaimer about the book. One of the main purposes of this book is obviously to sell you Citadel products. And so, I mean, you might like Citadel products, you might not. But the people who wrote this book always recommend the Citadel product for everything. You want a paintbrush, obviously Citadel is the only choice. You know, there's no other alternatives discussed. But there is also a lot of really good practical information in this book that will improve your hobby skills. I'm just going to go to the... here's the table of contents. So there's 2 sections. The first section describes the Citadel paint system, and it's just a method of painting, and there's a chapter on preparing and assembling miniatures, another chapter on base coating, a chapter on washing, a chapter on dry brushing, a chapter on layering, a chapter on glazing with the Citadel glaze paints, and there's a chapter on basing with the Citadel texture paints. And surprisingly, there is nothing about sealing models, which I thought they would at least mention, but that's surprisingly omitted. But there is a chapter at the end of section 1 that's titled Other Techniques, and they describe transfers, rust, and weathering. There is one more chapter on batch painting, painting more than one model at a time. The second section is just army project guides, how 8 different armies were painted. Each army is a chapter, there's 8 of them. And this includes Tyranids, Hive Fleet Kraken, Orcs and Goblins Iron Skins, Haradrim from Lord of the Rings, the Empire's Army of Rakeland, or Reekland, I don't know, the Aurora Chapter Space Marines, the Legions of Khemiri that are a Tomb King's army, Gondor from Lord of the Rings, and a Dark Eldar army named the Cabal of the Keening Blade. The last thing that is kind of interesting is the 2-page color guide. And it's sideways here. It's really supposed to go like that. But what this is you can pick any of the iconic color schemes from Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer Fantasy. Like, here's Blood Angels. How do I paint Blood Angels? And there's a step-by-step guide. Here's the base coat, here's the wash, here's 2 layers, here's a dry brush, and here's the glaze. Specific recommendations from the Citadel paint range, and they've got, I don't know, maybe 50 color scheme suggestions, you know. So that's very useful because that helps you go beyond what is specifically described and branch out. So I think this is really a great book. I'm happy with this purchase. I've painted a lot of miniatures. I've painted about 200, maybe a little more, since I started the hobby a couple years ago. And I have made copious use of the Army Painter method that I learned from guides that were published by the Army Painter Company, and that's great for speed painting. But recently I started to experience a desire to paint to a higher standard, and this book helps you learn to do that. I think it's a great book. The reason I got it is just because I had so many Citadel paints, and I figured I might as well learn how Citadel, the company itself, recommends you use their product. So and the other thing is, you look at the free guides available on the internet, and most of them are going to be using Citadel paints. So, you know, if you follow the free guide, you end up using the Citadel paints anyway, because they're just so prevalent, they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere. So if you're using the Citadel paint range, this is a great book for you to use.